Ah, gotcha.
For speed, the slower your speed, the higher net heat. That may seem a little bit backwards, but think about moving a flame under your hand. The slower you go, the more you burn yourself. Not literally what's going on there, but same kind of concept. And finally, more power, more heat.
Gotcha. But if you double the DPI and double the speed, those do not necessarily correspond.
They do not correspond, yeah. So what you're going to have to do is make your adjustments to one, guess for the best number for another, do a test run, and see if it works.
Okay.
And like I said, you'll actually develop a feel pretty quickly. It's not as bad as it sounds, but it may be a little frustrating at first. Yeah.
What are the other image dithering?
We'll get there. Let's start with just getting the heat settings in. So go ahead and grab your handouts to page 27. Look at map board, 300 DPI. Recommended raster speed, correct me if I'm wrong, is, oh god, I've totally forgotten this chart. 100%, right? Recommended power is 65? Okay. So there is one version of getting to a net heat, but we're not going to use this version because we almost never want to run with a raster speed of 100%. Like I said, this chart is straight off the Encalade website. They failed to accommodate for one particular failure point, which is if you run your raster data at too high a speed with narrow raster data, your 0 point, your home position, can drift in the middle of your job. Yay! So the way that works is as you're printing your raster data, the optics head is shuttling back and forth side to side, right? The faster those oscillations come, the more the laser starts jumping about on its wheels, and eventually it's going to start walking across the room. When that much motion is happening, your 0 point is definitely at risk.
So there's no work holding? There's nothing you can do to...
It's not so much the work holding, it's just literally the laser tearing itself apart.
Oh.
Yeah.
It just loses calibration?
Right.
Okay.
So the fix for that is if you're working with narrow raster data, run at a slower raster speed. If you look at your chart, almost all the recommended raster speeds are 100%.
Right.
That's too fast for almost everything we're going to be doing. So first thing you're going to do is figure out what is the narrowest part of your raster data. On this file we have a couple different portions of raster data. The narrowest part is actually going to be this leg of the spider that's sticking up above everything else. At this point, my raster data is only about 1/8 of an inch wide. So we're going to take that 1/8 inch as our measurement, and we're going to use that 1/8 of an inch to cap our speed for the entire run. Next, we're going to come up to this chart here. First column is that measurement we just took, the width of your raster data. Second column is the fastest speed you want to run at. So at 1/8 of an inch, we are definitely falling in this 0 to 6 inch category, so we're not going to set our raster speed any higher than 60%. That's a literal 60%, not 60% of whatever's on the chart.
However, if we get something nice and we decide that we've got it all dialed in, anything below that is totally fine. So we can, if a safe speed, for example, would be 50%, and then we could adjust the power accordingly.
Not sure I understand the question.
So these are the suggested ones for the size, right? But
right.
If we stuck to 50% for any size, it wouldn't. There would be no necessarily downside.
You'd always be safe. In fact, 60% is the usual number for just. Assume you're going to run at 60%.
Okay.
Unless you're working on a very wide piece of raster data, and then sure, feel free to dial it up.
Okay.
But I just by default set all of my raster speed settings to 60, adjust everything else from there, and I've never had any problems.
Okay, great.
It actually does not add that much extra time to your run either. Yay, non-linear. So now that does make one more change. If I drop my speed from the recommended 100% down to 60, that has increased my net heat relative to what was on the chart. So I also need to decrease my power from 65, in this case, down to 45. How to get 45? Because it worked well in the last class. There is not a precise relationship here.
There's no like math, like
there's no math.
Like with welding, when you set like you use 16 gauge
and in fact, it is even dependent on material. You can get all of these percentages mapped out for wood, for how much you need to drop your power relative to your speed, and then try it on acrylic, and it doesn't work.
So pretty much bring a notebook and record everything.
Bingo.
Right.
If you lose notebooks, make a hidden layer in your file, take notes there.
extra material.
Is there like general people who have lookup tables on this? You know, for example,
Feeds and speeds?
Yeah, exactly. Like a feed and speed table or some equivalent of something like this?
Not one that I would reliably trust.
All right.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Usually, once you get a little bit of running it at 500 hertz, you get a perforated line. So that's how you can use frequency to cheat and get perforated lines. Just drop it down lower and lower, and then you're just having very intermittent pulses. Acrylic is going to give you a nice smooth walled cut at about 5. Which means in order to print on the cardboard, I need to move it somewhere best practice, which is to do a dry run first, a test run. All we need to do to do a test run on this laser is leave the lid up, turn the pointer on if it's not already on, and hit the go button to start our job. I forgot to set it to vector only. Stream of air to your workpiece, which both cools the surface and